you name it, something has happened this week.
Did you see about the? Did you see the university that was doing one of the universities that's doing the tests in favor of Palestine?
No.
The cops got called on them, and were trying to come in to like get them to leave and break up the protest, and the students proceeded to use the training from school shooter drills to barricade the cops out.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Which
this
college?
week is goofy.
Hold on, I'll look it up. I
Where
Huh?
Fucking weird, man.
And then 3 states ban mass protests.
So wait, did they? So our non-compete clause contracts, are they now illegal?
Most
Yes.
of them.
They're-
For the most part.
I can see you, non-smoker, but you keep turning off
But
the
if
camera.
you're not a senior,
Yeah,
can
every
see
single
me?
one's invalidated.
Yeah, I see you.
Oh, I can't see myself. Boo.
That's awkward.
I'll have to tell my buddy. Because he's wanting to work for one of his clients, but obviously he works for a company. If the non-compete clause is non-existent, then they don't have to pay anything for him to move there.
Yeah, I'm like, there's going to be some massive poaching. There's going to be some proprietary technology, like, on the blocks. People are going to have to sweat.
The proprietary stuff would still be illegal to share. The issue is that what it was doing is, like, especially if you're on bleeding edge technology stuff, so anything with AI or anything with,
It will
like,
allow companies
physics.
to steal workers.
It's not about stealing, but
Poaching. We're using poaching.
Well,
like,
so yeah, it will allow companies to basically hunt out workers for other companies that they want to work for their company, and then offer them more money in hopes that they'll come work for them instead of their current company.
Yeah, and then I think that should be perfectly good. Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
it will
greatness.
increase competition. It will increase competition, help pricing come down too.
It will
For
also
sure.
it will also increase workers' bargaining rights.
Are we
Yes.
talking about it now?
Nah, not really. I just brought it up for fun, just to see how the waters were testing on this one.
Well,
this is
the
what we
Chamber
were
of
talking about.
Congress, Chamber of Commerce is just going to sue, and then the court is going to put it on hold. That's what's going to happen. So you got tell your friends they got about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to get their bag and move, and then they will be grandfathered in.
It took me a minute to find it, which university it was.
That's why I'm saying they got about 3 weeks. Yeah.
It took me a minute to figure out find which university it was. It was Cal State.
Okay.
Cal State. Cal State what?
Go down with the
Polytechnic.
Hmm. Yeah, 3 states ban mass protests.
I want to
Yeah,
see.
they did it before.
Well, yeah, I want to see. That's interesting. But on the thing I was just last talking about, this is the one I want to see. Right, this is major implications for like contract law going forward, and so this is one of those things where I'm curious to see how the federal government's going to rule, and if they can rule and say, "Oh, we can rule on these kind of things," as opposed to you're entering into a contract like openly. I don't know how if this is going to stand or not. Like, I think the long
Probably
term
won't.
implications are kind of the really interesting part. Like, or if they decide, oh, it is worth regulating. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. I'm like, I want to see how it plays out. Some.
I think it will stand. I think
I
it will
mean,
stand.
if
I
you
think
support-
Not with this court.
I think I think with this court, I think non-compete
No.
clauses are. I think it will, because I think there are
It's
multiple
50-50.
there are multiple judges on the court that have broken with the party multiple times, and I think this is something that would break with the
Well, I
party.
don't know that
over.
this is a
This
party.
isn't a
This is a party
thing. This is a business versus everyone else thing. Gorsuch,
Yeah.
Kavanaugh,
Well, I mean, but okay,
Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Roberts will likely rule in favor of Chamber of Commerce.
So I'm pretty
Okay,
conservative,
but
right?
the other
On
ones,
business side, there's
I'm
pros to each
almost.
side.
The
Like
other
this
one,
isn't like a cut and dry like issue, right? It's not like one side is purely pro business, right? On one
No.
side, if I want more free market, I could argue this sense because I'm not a libertarian. I would argue, oh, okay, I can go in here with the contract laws that currently is. We can have the non competes, and it's the established like kind of like precedent that's across the board. We know this, right? As opposed to we open it up, okay, we're gonna come in there and we're gonna like steal people, like Sprout was kind of saying earlier, or make poach people or whatever. Well, I don't know at the individual level I'm opposed to that. However, if we found that the regulations actually benefited the free market economy, like people were just getting brain drained over to like from like overseas companies or something, then I would definitely be opposed to the non-compete like thing being lifted if that's something that was to happen. You know, like it could go either way depending on how this shakes out. As far as conservatives.
Well, you got a week to think
Cypher,
about it because I'm doing that one next Wednesday.
So Cypher, you name the three justices I agree would vote against this. So what I'm saying is it'd be a 3-4.
No. So Alito and Thomas are going to go with business. So all the conservatives are likely to go with business. So it's a done deal. Amy is not.
Here's the thing, like
on that because Barrett has broken that multiple
You
times.
only need 5.
I know. I think the other 2 are not going to follow suit.
Based on what?
They've broken suit multiple times. If you pay attention to like
this isn't a Republican thing. This is a business versus everyone else. And Gorsuch,
but you're
Kavanaugh,
making it a Republican
Roberts,
thing because you're saying that they're just going to follow suit with Republicans. They're not going to follow just suit with Republicans. I'm saying they've done that. They've not done that before.
How has Alito and Thomas ruled on business matters?
I'm not worried about Alito and Thomas.
I am, but for other reasons.
Alito and Thomas are going to rule
We
the
can
business.
surpass Alito and Thomas.
Alito and Thomas are going to rule
There's
the business.
7 other justices.
And Gorsuch,
Congratulations,
Kavanaugh, and Roberts are likely going to as well. That's 5.
Now we're down to 5.
It's done.
You named 4.
I named 5. Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Roberts, and Kavanaugh. They're all pro-business.
Yeah, but what is the pro-business stance?
No, I don't.
What do you think the pro-business stance is?
The Chamber of Commerce is going to say that this is bad for business because it allows it. The Chamber of Commerce is going to say this is bad for business because what it does, it gives too much power to the. They're not going to say it's going to give too much power to workers. That's going to be what they're going to complain about. But they say it's going to open up too much ability for industry secrets and intellectual property that is inside someone's head being stolen and not a way to prove that it is being stolen when they go to other companies. That's going to be the line of argument.
Yeah, that's the argument that I thought that they were going to take. But on the flip side, right, is there is this like I don't know that it would be a civil war in like the Republican Party as somebody was trying to shout. Like you said, I think it's much more a business versus non-business perspective as opposed to and it's a cross ideological issue, right? So the opposite of that, I think, though, is that there's a pro-business aspect of this where no regulations means they can find new holes that attack. And I think there are many businesses that are going to find that very appealing. Especially like independent ones,
I mean independent, like small the Chamber of Commerce is likely going to back getting rid of the law. The small business associations are likely going to be in favor of having the rule change stay in place. So that's going to be an interesting split. Now, Cap, you're going to do this next week. Are you streaming?
Yep, I am streaming. We're going to do it next week, so let's just go ahead and get the introductions.
I think just the last thing I'll say is I think there's a possibility it gets through the court. I think that enough justices can see this helps workers, especially in like certain fields. I think that can be proven, so stuff like that.
Give me the 2 conservative justices, the 2 more pro-business justices you think will break with the business side, and I am open to that argument. But
see, because
I
feel like I'm pretty conservative, and I'm like sitting here looking at it.
What did you do?
I'm almost thinking that I would like the not compete thing gone, right? Because I would be able to go start poaching people. That's immediately what I would do from like other companies that sell the same shit. And I don't know that having the non compete is the pro business side, right? So I'm not.
It is because what it's going to do, it's going to cost businesses more money to hire workers, because when you get them into a non-compete clause, then they can't go to other firms, which means you can pay them less.
It's good for businesses.
It
it's not good for big
competition.
business.
Bingo.
Yeah, we'll see. I think
So, which should make it bipartisan good. Like,
everybody's going to be for this,
and Democrats hate everybody who owns a business. So, like, yeah, as long as like Democrats get the fact that workers are being empowered, conservatives get to stick it to big corps. It's such a win-win.
But they're only against big corporations because they're woke. They don't actually care.
Conservatives. Well, there's a big portion of conservatives that are against big business because it's all like because they're all working with the government. Everybody's paid off. It's all conspiracy.
Because of woke,
yeah, but they're not the ones
because of COVID. Because of COVID,
the problem comes down to the problem comes down to the fact that they're not the ones in Congress, and like the general population of conservatives might have issues with big business, but the ones it does.
How? Because it's going to the court, not to the House.
Okay, well, I mean the ones in government in general, not just Congress.
Yeah, but all that's going to matter is who's sitting on the Supreme Court, which is why we're arguing it this way. Anyways, but Lizzie, this is your show, and we're
let's get this popping
away from.
Hey, we'll do it next week.
Wait a second.
This is a teaser for next week.
Fucking around.
So let's start off with some introductions. And well, first off, welcome one and all to the Minds of the Ecclesia panel. I am your host, Lethe Water Kai, and with me I have some amazing guests to talk about some topics that I think I already know where Gibbs is going to go on the first one, but looking forward to this. So let's start with Cypher.
Hey everybody, my name is Cypher. I have a YouTube channel called Cypher Report where I try to do weekly episodes that are in depth on different things, such as the TikTok ban that did pass the Senate. So if that's stuff you're interested in, as well as foreign policy stuff and a little bit of history, go ahead and check me out on YouTube.
Excellent. And with me, the man that needs no introduction, Admiral Gibbs.
Yeah, I'm Admiral Gibbs. Y'all know me. I hope it's good to see everybody again. Ready to talk about whether or not these kids need some whoopings, and turns out they do. So we'll be talking about that.
All right, and back again, and glad to see him, Elder Drazi.
How's it going? I'm Elder Drazi, and I'm not at all surprised that the person to the left of me is in favor of hitting kids. I think it's the chain. It's the chain that really says I hit small children. Yeah, other than that, people pretty much know me. I appreciate the introduction opportunity.
Awesome to have you. And with us again, and I can't believe it, but here he is, non-smoker.
Hey, twitch.tv/non_smoker. I think, I'm not 100% sure, I think I'm the only person on the panel with any experience as an educator. I've been a teacher for 7 years now at the high school level. I think corporal punishment is really stupid. And I think that on the other topic, parents should have some degree of responsibility based on what their children do. But I think generally speaking, we don't give kids enough autonomy when it comes to education whatsoever. So looking forward to talking about it with y'all.
Glad to have you on for those exact reasons. Appreciate you. And with us back again after hiding last week, the Sprouticus.
What's up? Yeah, I'm the Sprouticus, and actually non-smoker. I currently work in education, not as a teacher, but administration level position. Are we doing openings for this first topic too?
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Just introductions.
It's just introductions.
Okay. If you like watching a streamer that doesn't stream, go to my Twitch channel and hit follow. I have not streamed in probably about a good 7 to 9 months on my own channel. So if you'd like to watch a streamer that doesn't stream, go ahead and hit follow on my page. I keep saying I will stream here soon. That continues to get pushed out. So I don't know the likelihood of it, but if you want to be surprised one day and see, oh shit, the Sprouticus is streaming, go give me a follow. Other than that, you can disregard.
Awesome. And we have the Vigilante. How are you, my dude?
I am pretty good. Like I said in this chat, in chat, at this point, I'm basically the token lefty, and Gibbs is the token righty for your centrist channel. So
there are no tokens. There are only great ideas and less great ideas. So let's start with Florida lawmakers.
Gibbs laughed too.
I laughed. Yeah. That's good.
Florida lawmakers pushing to restrict corporal punishment in schools. The new law would require schools to get parents' permission at the start of the school year. Lawmakers in Florida House said on Wednesday they didn't know public school officials could still use corporal punishment to discipline students. That practice, which is in use in nearly a third of school districts, could be restricted under a proposal that's getting bipartisan support this legislative session. Short of banning school officials from paddling or hitting kids, the proposal from Palm Beach Democrat Representative Catherine Waldron would require schools that use corporal punishment to get permission to do so from parents at the beginning of the school year. So, with this being the case, should the responsibility of dealing with troubled children be put on the school / the state or on the parents? And thank you for the subs. Appreciate you all. So let's start with Cypher on this one.
Yeah, I'm against corporal punishment just in general. It's shown to not really work. It doesn't really work as a deterrence when you come talking about adults. With kids, there's some evidence that it also causes long-term harm when it comes to mental health, as well as what they believe is proper as far as adults. It gives people permission that violence is the answer to solve a problem, and it's just in general not good. Now, that isn't to say that I'm 100% opposed with it. But, that's where I'm at with it.
Thank you. And thank you, Gibbs, for the subs. And let's hear your opinion on this.
Yeah, so it's surprise. I think as we're going to discover, I definitely think that the schools should be able to have corporal punishment and give these kids the whoopings. And we're going to talk about whether the parents or not need the whoopings for bad kids in the next topic. But I think that what something comes down to is we have a crisis of parenting in this country, and kids aren't being parented properly. And that's why we see a lot of these things on the rise, like school shootings, and we see these just people that are just a menace to society, perfect, like going throughout the. The American society, American school system. We're seeing people beat up regularly, and like not only is it they're getting beat up, it's becoming a TikTok trend almost, where people are getting jumped and then filmed and posted everywhere, and they're like world star and fight porn and just excitement, and then that would what sometimes we're trying to take these rights away from these teachers to punish them. They can't without punishment. You're not going to be able to run a class. It's pretty clear that this is just a breakdown. And these studies I've seen reflecting the info that corporal punishment is bad, don't or seem pretty dubious at best, or like definitely very lightly studied. So I think the thousands of years that corporal punishment has been around and has shown to be effective, I think that in and of itself speaks for itself.
Excellent. And Elder Drazi, how do you feel about this?
I can't believe he actually had the balls to say the evidence that should. There are very few things that we have as much psychological data on as hitting kids causes really bad outcomes. I would challenge you to find a comprehensive study that shows otherwise. There is so much on. I googled this today and I just couldn't believe how overwhelming the amount of data that we have that shows that it is detrimental to the children. There's some data suggests also detrimental to the adult. However, I think that there's like giving teachers full pass to decide when to hit a kid is fucking insane. Parents shouldn't have full pass to decide when to hit their kids. That's insane. However, when you see like these 15, 16, 17-year-olds step into their teacher and then the teacher just flinches and then they get the shit beat out of them, I'm in favor of the teacher fighting back. Like, the teacher should be able to defend themselves from somebody who's damn near a grown adult coming at them. Because some of these kids, too, they're fucking big. They're bigger than most adults. They're, like, in their prime of being able to build muscle. A teacher should not have to, like, get the fuck beat out of them and get put on the internet getting the shit beat out of them. So you should be able to defend yourself, but you can't just hit kids to, like, hey, you're talking too much. That's insane. I think that's pretty much my position.
Awesome. Non-smoker, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of can't believe, considering all the problems that public education has in this country, that what the conversation is like, should we be hitting kids? Like, it's so fucked up and backward. Like, okay, the fact is, most of the data suggests that school violence overall has actually decreased from like the 90s until 2017. And that there's been an uptick since COVID and lockdowns. And, look, if that is the case, and I trust the little bit of research I've looked into that it's got to be based on something, I don't know if that necessarily means that we should like start beating kids up, like that seems kind of like, I don't know, dumb. Guys, I taught in the fucking hood. I taught in Brooklyn for years in a really bad high school with kids who have nothing, right? And they're exposed to violence on a daily basis. They fight, they're in gangs, blah 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 blah. And I never was attacked. And not only was I not attacked, none of my colleagues were. And that comes down to, in some sense, as a teacher, being able to manage your fucking classroom. The idea that like these kids are just monsters who get up out of nowhere and just snap and assault people, it's just not based in reality whatsoever. I work now in a setting with kids with mental illness and drug addiction. We're like not a private school, but like an alternative school kind of. Never been attacked. Witnessed many, many, many fights, even as recently as last week, but I've never been attacked because it's about how you manage your classroom. That being said, it happens. It's about mitigating that stuff, resolving it, rather than teaching kids literally, hey, the only way to keep you in line is violence, because guess what? In the real fucking world, nobody's going to hit you if you don't go to fucking work. Nobody's going to hit you if you're not doing your fucking job. Nobody's going to hit you if you don't pay your fucking taxes, so on and so on and so on. Look, I mean, it's kind of weird being like a tanky and me like actually trying to say like being too authoritarian is bad. But I mean, the idea that you should smack kids and sure paddle them or whatever, like, I mean, Elder Drosny's right. All the research says it's like totally like regressive, it makes kids antisocial, blah, 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 whatever. So, yeah, I feel like it's an obvious thing. I don't understand how anybody could argue otherwise.
Awesome. Sprout.
Okay. I'm not in favor of schools hitting kids. And I'm not really in favor with parents hitting kids. If you can't have a conversation with a kid and them understand what they did wrong, then they're probably too young. And if they're that young, and they can't understand from a conversation, they're certainly probably not going to understand why you hit them. And then, if they can't understand with the conversation and it doesn't get fixed, you can take away certain things. You can take certain things away from them and essentially ground them or take other effective measures that are not physically assaulting your child. And I think you'd be much better off. Again, somewhat to non-smokers' point, children are the only group of people that we question whether or not we should hit them. We don't question, should I hit the senior citizens when they mess up? Or we don't question it with any other group. Children are the only group that we suggest it with, and by doing so, in my opinion, we're giving them a bad look at the world. Because I mean, they're starting off with getting hit, and that's going to be how they view it, and then they've got to unlearn that as a growing into becoming a man, or a woman. So, I think there's multiple different reasons why it's wrong, and I've outlined those reasons. I'm not sure how you could come to the opposite, because studies have quite easily proven that there's not benefit that's come to this that's overdoes the harm that has. So, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Vigilante.
Yeah, so I was really hoping that we would do the Michigan topic first, but because part of the points that I have planned in general would have played a little bit better that way. But Sprout used part of my point. I was going to say the same thing about like if they can't understand, like there's no point in doing it, and if they can't understand, there's other ways to punish the kids. And as also previously mentioned, there's plenty of evidence that show that corporal punishment negatively impacts children's mental health, and in my opinion, it is a form of physical abuse. And as I will mention several times during this panel, abuse contributes to crime. And so like allowing people to physically abuse their kids is just going to increase crime rates.
So, to the main portion of the topic, should the state have responsibility or the school have responsibility versus a parent? And is a parent handing off this responsibility to the school or state a good thing? And at what point would it even be acceptable to put in corporal punishment? So I'm going to go ahead and open up the discussion.
Yeah, Gibbs, right? The guy in the center, red hair. Yeah, okay. Making sure.
You can
So
just call him
Gibbs,
the
you
enemy
said
for this
that-
topic.
He's the only one who
Don't
supports
worry,
me
I'm
at
not
this
going to
point, so-
I'm not going to dogpile too much. So you said that we see a uptick in all kinds of we'll say adolescent misbehavior, right? Do you think that that's generally true? Is that what you would say? Where we're seeing an increase?
We're definitely seeing it up to. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be that. Yeah, I mean, like with just recently we had that girl put in a hospital on TikTok. Like, I mean, we
Sure.
see teachers like knocked out. I mean, if it's not, it's definitely there's not an update, but I think there is definitely an uptick in school violence. It
So-
definitely seems to be more socialized, like more.
Sure. I think that there's some truth to that, especially with like TikTok trends and stuff. I do think that there's a social component to it. You know, knockout games, whatever the fuck we had when we were kids. I can't remember what the hell
Bloody knuckles.
anything was like that. Say again.
We had bloody knuckles when we were kids.
Yeah. That's what it was. But generally speaking, though, crime is actually really down, just across the board. And most people that commit crime are young men between the ages of 14 and 32. So if it was an issue of this increasing crime, generally speaking, then or misbehavior generally, or teachers getting hit, whatever, don't you think we would see a general increase in crime across the board?
I don't know that I necessarily agree that crime is down. I see that the data I see shows that it's like it's incomplete. I feel like there's also all sorts of different crime. There's been reassessments of what crime is. Like, so like I don't necessarily agree with this.
Violent crime. We can focus just on violent crime. So violent crime is actually down since about 1989. Depends on how you measure it. 1992. That's when it peaked, between 89 and 92, depending on.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Whenever you say the violent crime, even that has kind of become like a cherry pick thing, right? Like if I just use the term mass shooting, right? Generally, would you say that applies to like if a gang shooting happened and it killed multiple people?
Yeah, but that's not how the FBI. So yeah, I get what you're
That's
going.
how a lot
with
of
this.
people
So
are doing it. Yeah, so like
that,
I don't know
but
that
not
I
the FBI. The FBI statistics wrap violent crime into several categories: shootings, murder, rape, assault, breaking and entry. What's the other one? There's like a couple other one. Arson is included. There's a slew of crimes that I think everyone on this panel.
You're talking about mother something. He's talking about mother something where they don't include gang shootings in their studies and stuff like that. I know.
Yeah,
what
but
he's
that's
pulling
not the
from,
FBI,
but it's not the FBI, and that's not what's considered. When you
do
say
we think that
violent crime is a very specific like legal indication of like what law you got convicted of breaking. So, like, when someone says violent crime statistics, it's not.
But it doesn't matter.
It literally is the crimes that would be categorized as violent crime.
So we have the UCR report, which is.
I have from 2022 I have from 2022 saying the FBI doesn't define mass shooting that way. They have it defined.
Yeah, mass shooting, because mass shooting is nebulous. It's anybody that's over 4, but that doesn't matter.
Cypher, you seem to understand the data pretty well. Can I just help get around this problem? Wouldn't we? I'm pretty sure, because I've looked at statistics for it, if we just got rid of gang violence out of the equation entirely, violent crime has still gone down, correct? Because we're not in schools. We're certainly not talking about violent crime. We're not talking about gang crimes.
You're absolutely talking about gang crimes and violent schools. I don't know.
In schools, I think there is some gang, but the
is it
point
classified
is that
as that?
even if,
yes,
even
no.
I don't. Data wise, I don't know if it is. But even if you include.
Sorry.
But even if you include gang violence in the violent crime measures, all crime has gone down. Rapes, murders, assaults from 1992. Now, if you compare 2023, I think we only have data from 2022. It's complete. I think 2023 data is still being worked on. But don't quote me on that. If you take that and compare it to 2018, there's been a slight increase in crime because mostly of COVID is what the explanation is from criminologists and people that aren't, basically you have to throw people in prison to wrestle with crime. And even in some cases, there are violent parts of violent crime that have gone down since then. The reason that I brought all this up is because if that is what we're going to use as a measure, then we can't really say that there's actually an increase in all this violence. What we can say is that there's more awareness of the violence that did happen, partially probably due to cell phone and social media.
I mean, we're higher when it comes to violent crime. We're a little bit higher than we were in 2019, just by a tad bit. But
yeah, it's like 2% or something.
If you look at the chart, it actually just kind of looks like it's actually just leveling off. and it looks like it spiked, came down, then it's like leveling off is what it looks like it's doing.
Mhm.
I think this is a non sequitur.
It looks
if it
like a
doubled,
noise in the data.
let's say in the last 3 years, violent crime doubled. Does that mean we should be able to hit kids?
No,
but
Right.
but the reason I was bringing this up.
But we're attacking the backing of.
Well, I would argue the
as to why
opposite.
we-
I would say that see, I'm saying that the lack of doing this is that we have 50 years of research, and like I said, I've been looking over a lot of this research while we've been talking here, and it seems dubious at best. And they include other statistics like, oh, well, we're not going to include this, or we're going to include this, and some of them could be.
I don't know what
counterstated.
data you looked at.
There's-
So
I
that's
mean,
why I'm
I'm looking at-
referencing FBI.
Yeah, so that's fine. I understand. I don't think you're being in bad faith. I'm just like when I'm looking at the statistics say that like spanking is bad, right? There are some things they include in a couple of these studies that I see in the metadata the analysis that I'm looking at from Vox. Here I'll post this little talking point they did,
Sure.
and this is basically saying in their data they claim to find that spanking is bad, right? But even in their data that I'm looking at in the metadata, like when I compare it to like say the Scientific American here, I'll post kind of what they post about it as well. Um, they're just it seems to be like it's dubious. You're going like 50 years of like a potential research off thousands of years of society existing where they've done this, right?
Yeah, but
And I look-
okay. So the reason
and I look and I don't see benefits. These supposed benefits
The-
seem to be leading to like a moral degradation where
But
more
that's
people
what
are
it's-
mentally ill than ever before.
But that's what it seems like, right? So you're using the seems like argument to
about
buttress
we
your
go with
point. If crime has
hard
actually
facts?
gone down and we're actually not, if crime has gone down, which I think most of us are here in agreement, if crime has gone down and the existence of corporal punishment against kids has gone down, everybody said how soft 90s babies are, Gen Z, because they weren't spanked as a kid, then maybe the correlation actually has something to do with it.
Wait, we can get
that's-
rid of
that's my-
correlation. We can focus on what we know for sure. Exposure to violence in an early age causes brain development impairment. It causes nervous system damage, and it causes damage to the endocrine system. Why is this good for kids? Why is like
Well,
you
it
thinking
also
that like
causes. It also causes child aggression. The children are
Yes.
much more likely to be
Cortisol
aggressive.
levels.
these are
too.
probably going to be a result of brain development in the nervous system damage.
Mhm.
Like these things will lead to you being more violent. And I don't understand why saying it worked for thousands of years. Did it though? What
that
are you
was my
how
point.
are you saying like did it work? Like you're saying, well, I don't trust this study because it's only 50
more
years old.
humans that have ever
Where's
existed, so I'd say it's pretty successful. I mean,
where's the
we're
data to
growing.
suggest that it was good? You're just saying it's good because it happened.
Just because
Because
we
it's
were
hard.
reproductive.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
What does
right.
it worked mean?
What?
Like
I mean, how many humans exist on this
They
earth
kept
now?
having babies. Must have been good.
How
Yeah,
did
man.
it
We're
work?
actually having
They-
less
they-
kids
they-
now because of
full-time.
material.
Let non-smoker in here real quick.
What did it accomplish? That's what I want to know. When you say it worked, what did it accomplish? I'm just curious.
We don't have. You see any societies where they have the spanking, especially even in the United States. We've seen just like this moral decay of like not moral decay. That's not even what I would say. Mental decay is a better way to put it. Just look if you look at each generation progressively as we've gotten away from spanking, people seem less well adjusted to society as a whole. There's more like I hate to like bash like mental disorders, but people seem, for lack of a better term, more autistic than ever before, which is like really bad in social
You-
settings. Like these are all things that have happened, and you can't convince me that it's not directly related to the spanking. Like, I mean, all this is coming back.
Bruh.
why aren't you convinced that
People
it's not related to us getting off of lead-based
Wait,
fuel?
yo,
What the
you
fuck
gotta
are you
let me
talking about?
respond
Something
to
we
that.
used to
Wait,
have, and now you don't like things
Spanking-
now?
But
Okay, let
but
non-smoker
studies-
respond. Hold on.
Studies have shown that spanking though
Okay, wait,
makes
hold on.
kids antisocial.
Sprout, please.
All right, go ahead, non-smoker.
Please, dude. Okay. Are you saying that, like, if we hit kids more, they wouldn't
This
be
is
fucking
crazy.
autistic? What are you
I'm
talking
saying
about?
there's a difference between the way you're phrasing that, which is like hit kids. That sounds abusive. I'm talking about if you go and you do something bad and you're a little fucking terror and you're a 5-year-old who knows right from wrong and you do something terror, guess what? And get a little swat on the butt is not going to give you mental anguish that's going to give you trauma for the 50 years if you're being a bad child.
Dude,
It's just like when
dude,
you touch, hold on. Do you think that when you touch a stove when you're young and you go, oh, mom says it's hot, and she says don't, and you go, ow, do you think that teaches you something?
But that's
Do you
don't
think that's the
different.
same as somebody hitting you?
Nothing
That's
to
the
do with
natural
that.
consequence of your own
It's
action.
And this is spanking is the natural consequence.
That's not
of
a
that.
natural
You act under the
consequence.
terror.
No,
you're
it's
gonna
not.
see
It's
it.
physical
That
abuse.
is a problem. That is a problem
punishment.
that y'all don't seem to understand the real
Come
world is.
on. Come on.
You don't know what
dude. That's
natural
fucking
response
ridiculous.
means.
What are you talking about?
It is a natural
Bro,
response. The
let-
world,
let's-
the world's
It's
a very cool
Here's-
place.
okay.
Pain happens.
Can
Like,
we agree that the public education system generally underperforms relative to other first world countries? I think we can all agree with that, right?
Yes.
And so I think it's fair to say for us to like scrutinize everything we do, right? I actually think it's imperative that we do that if we're ever going to fix any of these fucking problems. But to look at this one issue, I think it's kind of obvious that like this is something that's kind of like exclusively American, this notion of like holding on to corporal punishment as a means of like mitigating misbehavior or regulating student behavior in a general sense. Like, look, we got to get our kids to like fucking do math on the same level as like some other countries can, or read at like a higher level. Like, why are we having a conversation where it's like, okay, we have to enforce violent boundaries on students to address what? Violence in schools? Like, listen, there's been violence in schools for decades. There's violence in the world. It's like something that's just part of fucking reality. You know what I mean? And how do you reduce the level of violence? I mean, is it, is increasing corporal punishment? Is there some way we can demonstrate for sure that that will resolve violent tendencies among kids? And all these guys are trying to say in a very roundabout way with all this data that no, there isn't. And the evidence of that is we've reduced the level of corporal punishment in schools and violence levels have gone down. So there's no fucking value to it whatsoever. So, I mean, Gibbs, I know I've been like a dick to you in the past, but like I think this is, I respect you taking this stance when no one else will. But like, there's just nothing here, bro. Like, there's no data to support it. It's just fucking, caveman shit.
Do you have kids?
Do I have kids?
Yeah. Does anybody here besides me have a kid? Well, Kai does, but he's not.
I was a step parent for 7 years, but I left that bitch, so not a parent anymore. But
I'm assuming you're talking about the mother, not the kid is the bitch, yeah?
Yeah, the mother.
Okay. So I gotta say, I have so when my child was a baby, we would just like tap their hands as just like a physical signal, not pain inducing. Say, hey, don't do that. Tap it and move it away. Just so that they would know that like my hand can't be here because verbal language isn't a thing, but there was no pain involved in that. I always thought that if I ever did spank my kid, I would do it when I wasn't mad, and then do it and then come back and explain to them. But it was never necessary. I found out that I could just talk to my kid and they understood. In fact, I have yelled at my kid one time in their entire life. And because I needed immediate action right now. And dad doesn't yell. When dad yells, I'm going to fucking listen, okay? And because I have learned by interacting with my kid that you can actually communicate with them. They're little people. You don't have to strike them in order to get them to understand something or to understand and develop values. It's just, it's crazy. I think if you need to hit your kid, you're probably just a lazy fucking parent.
No, I've definitely seen.
Yeah, I would agree.
Let me give you an example where that's not true, right? So, like, and this is once again, we're using anecdotal examples here, I guess. But let me give you an example I've seen personally, and I'm just like, wow, that kid needs a spanking. Like, they're just like unequivocally, that kid's going to be a terrible, narcissistic, evil individual as he gets older, unless somebody checks him now and teaches him some manners, right? And this is like a 4-year-old, and like, I remember going to this house, and then I met this kid's father, and I was like, oh, these are like innate. Like, I've never before believed that serial killers could be bred until after I met this person. Like, oh, this guy, he's probably got a body somewhere. This kid's gonna have some body somewhere. You're just like, wow, this is just a terrible individual. And it's because nobody smacked you in the mouth when you were acting up back in the day. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely not true. Hold on, because I was going to bring these statistics up later.
Why do you assume that kid isn't physically punished?
Oh, because I know.
Why is that the assumption?
I know the parents and they don't physically punish her. They've talked about how this is the third kid and he's like a perfect child and all these other kids.
But that's different. Then that parent. So hear me out.
And I'm like, wow, you should just make this one.
Yeah, just so you know, Gibbs, only 32% of serial killers experience no form of abuse. Only 32% of them.
And 36% have experienced physical abuse.
I mean, there's just physical abuse and a spanking.
Hear me out on this. Hear me on this. So from what you told me, Gibbs, that kid is not enforced with boundaries whatsoever. It's not the fact that they don't have physical punishment. It's the fact that their parents dote on them and treat them as special little sunshines when their
Sure.
kid's a piece
I
of
mean,
shit.
they have boundaries. Let me
And so,
correct. They have boundaries, but they don't enforce it with the physical punishment. It's clear that these boundaries are able to be
but
pushed.
you
They're not
said that the
boundaries.
parent
Physical
treats their
boundaries.
kid like they're the perfect little
Sure.
angel.
I
So
mean,
that's
and what I'm saying is,
enabling.
yeah, it
It's
is a
not a
bad parenting problem,
parenting.
but it's definitely because, yeah, the bad parenting is not having physical punishment as a
Well,
use.
here's I mean
Okay.
here
Yeah, but the
here's
kind of
here's
bad
the other
parenting that
problem.
you're talking about is neglect.
Here's the other problem though, is that like this is according to the World Health Organization, but people have been reporting mistreatment as a child, abuse as a child, much more recently. And this is just because of the removement of the stigma against it, the availability of help, and that's majorly why people have been reporting. Not that the numbers have necessarily changed,
What if,
but
okay, let
nearly.
me
But
try to
wait,
build
one second. Nearly 3 in 4 children, 300 million children, regularly suffer physical punishment and/or psychological violence at the hands of parents and caregivers. Consequences
Is
of
this
child
globally?
Yes, globally. Consequences of child maltreatment include impaired lifelong physical and mental health, and the social and occupational outcomes can ultimately slow a country's economic and social development. This is a very important thing. Even by nation, it's a very important thing that we don't do this to our kids. That way, our nation can be successful moving forward.
Yeah, I disagree with like a lot of this data you bring up. But once again, let me give you another example. What if we try to build a bridge here? Let me just try to build a bridge. See, because I see spanking as a mild irritant. I don't cause it pain. I'm not talking about when people go and beat their kid and put them in the hospital. That's not what we're talking about, right? I'm thinking something mildly discomfort. Like say you say a bad word. Guess what? Do you ever have your mouth washed out with soap? You don't want
No.
to. You don't want to say that bad word. Yeah, that's a bad word. You never say that word again. These are good ones. Or like a mild irritant. Like, oh, okay, stand in the corner and put your hands behind your back and stand with your nose pressed in the corner and don't take it out for 15 minutes because you're acting up. Like that's a mild irritant. That's bad. That's corporal punishment. And y'all about saying all these things. It sounds like y'all want all of
No,
these
I
things.
think there's a difference between
And
sitting in the corner for a bit and then being hit. I
Not
think
the way. No,
corporal-
no. I'm not. I know that's not the way he's talking about, because the way he's talking about is intentionally meant to put pain in certain places because you're
yeah, a little bit of pain.
Yeah, it's
Just
it's
the soul.
intentional pain is what it is, Cypher. It's fucking disgusting.
Oh, so like what some
Inten-
East Asian countries do, where they put their kids in like different poses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Gotcha.
yeah. So I guess I don't know anything about the post thing, but a little bit of pain builds character. Like, I mean, that's good for you. Like it's just like when you go work out, right? You feel sore, right? That means you're building muscle, right? These are things. It's building character.
Are you comparing
Not that
child
kind of
abuse to
fairness,
working
bro.
out?
I'm
Are
not
you
comparing
seriously
child.
comparing
I'm not
child
comparing
abuse to
child
working out?
abuse. I mean, I'm sorry that you have this like little namby-pamby idea what abuse is, but sitting in a corner with your hands behind your back, having a little bit of a mild irritation is not child abuse.
Intentionally caused pain from parents,
That
and
is not
intentionally
child
caused
abuse.
physical pain
Yes, it is.
over a prolonged
Absolutely not.
over a prolonged period of time is, yes, child abuse.
That is some namby-pamby bullshit if I've ever heard.
Okay, then you disagree with any
Um,
mental health expert that's out there.
Oh, sure, I did. I
Yeah,
was sure with some of them. Yeah. I mean,
Blunt smoker?
literally the definition of physical abuse is intentionally causing bodily harm.
it's not bodily harm. It's a mild irritant.
It's still bodily harm.
Can I for
think-
this? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, okay, let me build a bridge. Okay, Gibbs. I think I'm actually probably with you that we've seen like a moral decline, in America, right? Overall. And I think people have like way less regard for their fellow human being. And I completely disagree with you on the cause on that, but I agree that it exists. My question to you would be, how can you or can you demonstrate to me how violence, against a kid at any level, whether you call it like minor, discomfort, as you say, or smacking them in the face or whatever, how can that possibly contribute to like a more harmonious society, given the fact that all you're teaching the kid is that violence is used to resolve problems?
I mean, to be fair, I would say violence has resolved a lot of people's problems, whether we think that's a good thing all the time or not. But I think violence is maybe the oldest way of solving problems. And, I think sometimes the threat of violence or knowing there's a harm keeps people from acting out, right? So, like, for example, Texas now has the mutual combat law, and we've had that for a couple of years now, and we're not degrading into like what's like some dystopian society where everybody's dueling in the streets, or you're just fighting people in like oh, I saw them at Walmart just jumping them. Like that's not happening, right? But now people know, oh, there's a threat of violence. I have to like be concerned about what I say or do, because it's not just, oh, the government must step in. It's
I
that
don't
like
think
I
most
have
people even know that law exists, and I live in
oh,
Texas. Just
well, it's the
FYI.
thing. Well, I mean, are you hanging out with the wrong people then? But like the point is like
Well, yeah.
Wait,
it's
hold on. Can I ask a follow-up? Or did I get disconnected?
Please do.
You're
No,
good.
you're
We can hear you.
Just quick, Gibbs. Okay, so all right.
accountability is important.
I get your point. I think. So let me ask you this. Well, maybe somebody could pull this up actually, because I don't expect you to know this offhand. But can anyone like find some research which shows like what percentage of violent criminal offenders have experienced violence in their upbringing, either from a parent or because just as a teacher, I mean, I
Yeah, I've
don't have
got plenty of
data.
evidence that I prepared for today.
Sure, I'm sure
that
you do, but I
in
just want to
particular.
say, like, anecdotally, as a teacher, the students who are the most violent generally experience the most violence at home. It's not like kids who become violent or adults who become violent come from these peacenik households where the kids are spoiled brats and then they just
That's why I
act out
think
with
the
violence.
original question
Just
is
a
important.
quick one. The United States, 1 in 6 state male inmates reported being physically or sexually abused before the age of 18, and many more witnessed interpersonal violence. Over half of the male inmates, 56%, reported experiencing physical trauma, and this is coming from the National Institute of Health.
This is why I want to break with what they're saying, though, to an extent. There's a difference between like abuse and trauma, right? Like that's a major factor.
Or not.
Like no, yeah, I'm steamrolling on this one. There's a difference between there's going to be
stupid because I had a fact, but that's fine.
It's
Keep going.
fine.
Let's go
I
factless.
have to
Let's
keep
do
going.
it.
I mean, you can have your fact. I just want to say this. Like I'm trying. I want to
No, you just want to
differentiate.
interrupt me and say it.
Yeah, I did.
know.
I am. Anyway, there is a. I guess I'm 1v8 people right now. There's gonna be some interrupted. Like so, whenever we got going, like when you got okay, what were we just talking about? The definitions. I don't usually do the definition debate, and I really hate doing it. But I think in this case it is necessary. Like how we're defining abuse. I like what they were saying earlier. If you've ever like spanked your child, that's abuse. I disagree with that. I think like beating your kid up to like that's not a punishment. That's like a appropriate now, like maybe a SWAT or like stand in the corner, have a minor discomfort, like for a little, like 15 minutes or something, or say a bad word, wash your mouth out with some soap so it tastes bad. You got to spit it out, and you don't want to have that experience again. That's not abuse. And if you are, well, then I'm sorry. I frankly don't respect you and I think you're a pussy. Like, I mean, and like other, but like now, if we're talking real abuse and real sexual abuse, I agree. Assault, I agree that those definitely contribute to violence, as opposed to like maybe in a school situation, they would be able to like be dispassionate, just give them a show of force that can actually like change them, from this like steered course where they think they have no accountability to anybody, and like supposed violence is always the answer.
Gibbs, I don't think that
the FBI in coalition with the U.S. Attorney General's National Task Force on Children Exposed to Violence found that exposure to violence affects approximately 2 out of every 3 of our children. And then additional research concluded that 90% of juvenile offenders in the United States have experienced some sort of traumatic event in childhood, and up to 30% of justice-involved American youth meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder due to the trauma experienced during childhood.
Told you.
I just want to say I don't think anybody here thinks you mean beating the shit out of them, right? But I think that this is like a really bad lens to look at this through. And if everybody's in agreement, I think I have a better lens. What should the role of a parent be for your children?
I understand that's a better lens. I understand that's
because it gets rid of all this like nitty gritty stupid stuff that like obviously he disagrees.
About education though.
Well, if we can find out what he thinks the role is supposed to be, then we can figure out how a spanking or physically punishing a child would fit into that lens. Because to me, this is wholly removed from what the role of a parent ought to be.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that more the next topic?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what I was going to say. If we want to get closing statements on this one and move into the true meat of the situation,
it's been about an hour.
Oh my god!
It is right on time. Hey, this one went great. If anyone has any closing statements on this one, because I know Gibbs was all by himself on this for the most part, and we have Osiris in here if he wants to say anything on this topic, he's more than welcome to after Gibbs says anything he's going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a major issue like with the United States today, and I think maybe we're seeing it worldwide. And I people want to point to all these things and say, "Oh, it's not real." I think that the lack of a disciplinary is, for someone, is like leading to this recourse where there's no consequences, and I think that is very bad on the human psyche. And now I know y'all disagree. We can argue about the parent thing in the next topic, but I think there's enough evidence to starting to do that. I don't always. Sometimes when we have these initial studies, we've only had like 50 years of studies. I think for thousands of years, humanity has been evolving and growing, and I don't think that a mild irritation is abuse. I think it can be a teacher, just like you don't put your hand on the hot stove. He goes, ow. You go, oh, I don't want to do that kind of thing. Oh, if I go and break mommy and daddy's lamp, I'm going to get a whooping. Like, maybe I don't go in there and knock it down because I fear the consequence. I don't know why the 2 + 2 is always down to equal 75, but I think this is a clear example where it equals basic principles.
All right, Osiris.
I think I just got brain
I
cancer.
don't think I'm caught up enough to say too much about this. I think what are we talking about? Corporal punishment in schools?
Yeah.
Corporal punishment in schools? No. Corporal punishment at home? Depends. That's what I got.
All right, Sprout, you had something you want to say?
Yeah. Don't hit your kids. If you want the best for your kids, don't hit your kids. You can talk to them. You can find other ways to discipline. It's not that hard to find other ways to discipline besides intentionally causing pain to your child. It's pretty simple. I don't see a need to hit kids. There may have been a need way back when, but it's not today, and it needs to go away.
We're in our gentle parenting era, everybody.
All right. So, go ahead, Eldrazi, please.
Yeah. So, I guess my closing thought is that in pretty much every facet of children's life, we are obsessively concerned with safety. To what I would even say is a unhealthy degree for the kids. However, when we try to mitigate so much risk in every other category, because we understand that what happens as a child is going to impact the adult that they become, why on earth, if we know that, like the example that I gave with my kid, that you can find alternative ways to adjust behavior, why on earth would we take the one that has only 50 years of data, which would seem to be like a good enough amount of data to really look at most things? But why would we possibly risk these potential bad effects that we can see reflected in the studies when there are alternatives? It just seems like a really we're disregarding like one of the strongest unifying moral principles that society holds, which is protect kids.
Excellent.
I'll say that I think the last 50 years of data is probably the most relevant because it's when we've slowly started to switch from like corporal punishment being super common to it being relatively uncommon. So we can see we'll actually be able to see the effects on crime rate and stuff. So as well. So
excellent. Cypher, did you?
I have nothing to add. We're good.
Good deal. Non-smoker.
Yeah, I think that violence in the home in school is bad all the way around. Oh boy. Well, some other people may challenge me on that, but anyway, look, long and short of it is, I understand Gibbs's arguments, but I just don't think they're good arguments. Sorry, Gibbs. Okay, and we're out of here.
Awesome. All right. So the next topic: at what age should parents bear full responsibility for their actions of a child, for the actions of a child entering adulthood? Should this set a precedent going forward? Michigan school shooter's parents sentenced to 10 years in prison for not stopping a runaway train. The first parents convicted in a U.S. mass school shooting were sentenced to at least 10 years in prison Tuesday, as a Michigan judge lamented missed opportunities that could have prevented their teenage son from possessing a gun and killing 4 students in 2021. These convictions are not about poor parenting, Oakland County Judge Cheryl Matthews said. These convictions confirm repeated acts or lack of acts that could have halted an oncoming runaway train. The hearing in a crowded, tense room was the climax of an extraordinary effort to make others besides the 15-year-old attacker criminally responsible for a school shooting. Jennifer and James Crumbly did not know Ethan Crumbly had a handgun. He called it his beauty and a backpack when he was dropped off at a Oxford high school but prosecutors convinced jurors that the parents still played a disastrous role in the violence. The Crumbleys were accused of not securing the newly purchased gun at home and acting indifferently to signs of their son's deteriorating mental health, especially when confronted with a chilling classroom drawing earlier that same day. The Crumbleys earlier this year were convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The blood of our children is on your hands too, Craig Schilling told the couple, wearing a hoodie with the image of son Justin Schilling on his chest. So, let's start with Cypher on this one.
Yeah, so I'm actually glad that the parents were held responsible in this to a degree. I don't know if 10 years is the proper punishment, but I wasn't on the jury, so I don't know all the entirety of the facts that they were presented or what the particular Michigan law is when it comes to child neglect. But I think it is clear that these parents, in particular, were neglectful of their son's, again, deteriorating mental health situation, and also being kind of just neglectful in general. The mother, like when they were trying to get him out of school, like one of these times, I think there was multiple times where this happened, but one of these times, the mother's like, I gotta take care of my horses. Well, I'll pick them up when I'm done. Despite the fact that they were left a message saying that this was an urgent thing. Similar thing happened when the kid reached out to his parents directly with text messages. So there's that. As far as when a parent should be held completely responsible or at least partially responsible, in the United States, we're coddling kids. We're saying that they're not a full adults or can't be charged as an adult in some instances until the age of 18. If we're going to do that, then it should be until the age of 18. But personally, I think it's around 16 or so when you can start having diminished responsibility as a parent for different acts. In this case, I think up to the age of 18 for this particular case is warranted because they are the ones that could have gotten their kid the mental health that he needed and failed to do so. It seemed like they didn't believe in it. So there's that.
Excellent. Admiral Gibbs.
I'm a little bit up in the air on this one. I think that they should be able to be like I don't know if I'm a fan of this specific, right? I do think that parents should be held accountable, maybe even up to 18, uh, like for something like this, right? But I think that it should come through the civil system. Like they should be liable civilly, right? I'm not sure I like the idea of the government being able to come in here and start jailing people for the crimes of like their relatives or their children. I get it's their kids, but or like probably whoever is their guardian, if it's their niece or nephew or little cousin or something that they have to take guardianship of. I'm sure any of these could apply. I I'm not sure I like the government coming in and being able to say, "Hey, we're going to put you in jail for 10 years because your son was a mass murderer." Especially if maybe you did like do a pretty good job. And like we can even argue, I don't know the facts of this case super in depth. I know that Cypher just brought up the oh, I'm going to take care of the horses. I mean, like sometimes I can see certain situations where oh, I'll just come do that. It can't be that urgent. Like they whatever. I don't know the exact situation right here with this. So like maybe they were just the world's worst parents, right? I just even then I don't know how much you want to put onto them or what age we want to start trying them as adult because we do try people for adults in some crimes even pretty young. I think we've seen what the youngest like is it 13 or 14 has been tried as an
Depends on the
adult.
state, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the state, and so I also think it depends on the kid. Like if they understood what they were doing, then by all means, let's try them as an adult. If they're doing some like real wild shit, like I don't know, killing people, then absolutely. But like if they have a mental break, that's another thing. I don't know. I think
I don't think
civil
he's
is the way to
answering the
go
question.
more than this. But I could also see situations where it's situational, and we might need to go after them like out of the legal
Oh,
system.
I was supposed to be muted.
Thank you, Gibbs. Elder Drazi.
I think overall as a topic, it's pretty tough and nuanced. I think in this situation, I just want to clarify too. They say that he didn't know that he had the gun. They knew that he had a gun. His dad bought it for him. The gun store owner, she testified that the dad bought. So they knew he possessed it. So in this situation, it seemed like they purchased him a gun, which he was able to get without them getting it for him, which is fucking insane. So I'm pretty for them getting some pretty severe punishment in this case specifically, but it's people seem to have this idea that parents like truly know their kids, and I think that there is if you're a good parent, you probably can't know your kid that well. I firmly believe that a big role of your job as a parent is to let your kids practice having freedom. So you monitor them practicing having freedom, which means that they're going to have some things that aren't going to be super obvious to you. However, we would like to think that you would be able to see the kind of torment that would cause you to shoot up your school coming. I don't know if it's always the case. It seemed like they did a really good job in this situation of looking at all the evidence, saying like we can very clearly see the steps that should have been taken. There's some very egregious errors by the parents. So it makes sense why this would be the one where the law really came down on the parents. If it's this kind of examination and this kind of nuance that the court's going through to put the blame on the parents, I'm all for it. As far as the age goes, I think you can have an argument like past the age of 12 when you can start thinking independently that the parents probably aren't going to be solely responsible for the kid's actions anymore. But if you have like a little kid who's basically only knows what they've been told, it's pretty much only on the parents. I think that's all I got for opening.
Awesome. Non-smoker.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally in favor of holding parents accountable for providing a child with like a gun, and then they go to the school with a gun and kill people. I think somebody needs to be held responsible for that. And I think the precedent in terms of the law across the country is more or less that, the parent is in charge of keeping their child safe, and I think that that can include like giving their mentally ill child access to a machine that can, end life. I think there needs to be like some accountability somewhere. That being said, I do think there's an extent to which this decision is just meant to make the victims' families feel better because there's really no solution there. It's like your child died, so somebody's going to pay the price, and it's not going to bring their kids back, unfortunately. All of that said, I think this opens up a bigger and, to me, more interesting conversation about the level to which parents should be involved in the decisions their kids make, at least in terms of high school aged kids. You know what I mean? There's obvious like things that parents should have oversight with, like who their kids dating, for example, or when they're going out or whatever. But I happen to think as an educator, we see way too much parent involvement in terms of education, like in terms of steering kids on a particular path or direction, or even trying to curate the exact content they're exposed to in the classroom. It's like very inappropriate. We've done a lot to infantilize children that way, and just treat them like they have no responsibility until they graduate high school, and then they mysteriously like flounder or struggle right out of high school. So yeah, I mean, in terms of violent acts, like parents need to be held responsible to some extent, right? There has to be some accountability somewhere. And then, yeah, but I think in other areas, it opens up a bigger conversation.
Awesome. Osiris.
I am 100%, a million percent not a fan of holding parents accountable unless you can prove criminal negligence. In these cases, and I think in this case, you probably could prove criminal negligence. When I say kids, I mean teenagers. You are 100% responsible for your kids. You're not 100% responsible for your teenagers who have the mental capacity to understand right and wrong at that point. Uh, and I think we overindulge in America in holding parents responsible for the actions of their teenage kids who are almost adults and are capable of going through the criminal justice system, not as adults, but at least as minors. Hey, put them in there. Fuck them.
Thank you, Osiris. Sprout.
In this limited case scenario, I agree with the parents being found guilty of like negligence that led to this, and basically find them guilty of finding them of guilt with what their child did. However, I think the case left it far too open. I think this is far too open of a precedent. I think what's going to happen is that a bunch of other states are going to start using this precedent to put parents behind bars for things that are not like up to this par. In which I think I'm going to disagree with. So I think that while I agree with like the jury's verdict, and I agree that they should be found guilty, I am very hesitant to use this as a precedent for the states because I just don't trust the government in their delegation of charging.
Awesome. Vigilante.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest. I fully support this decision. The precedent might be open, but I mean,
I think we're all
like
agreeing.
Sprout said, but the thing is, like, as we kind of hinted at in the previous topic, I mean, there's quite a bit of evidence that abuse, neglect, and this kind of these other types of abuse and all that affect crime rates. They affect whether or not people are going to be able to are more likely to commit horrendous acts like school shootings, rape and sexual assault, become serial killers, become pedophiles, etc. And I actually don't just think that parents should be held accountable for,
I
like,
don't
if
know
their
if they're
kid
more
turns
likely to
around and
become pedophiles.
does a school shooting, but if,
I
like,
don't know about
when
that.
they grow up, if they turn out to be a serial killer, I think the parents should be punished for that as well. If they end up turning up as a serial rapist, I think the parents should, like, if there's evidence of abuse and neglect and stuff from their childhood, that the parents should be punished for that as well. And pretty much any of the horrendous crimes that I mentioned, whether they're an adult or a child, if there's abuse, if there is actual evidence that the parents have performed some sort of abuse or neglect, and their person that they raised turns around and commits these heinous crimes, they should be punished for it.
Well,
They're just as guilty.
I was gonna have a slippery slope argument that for this that was my concern, but now I have a new slippery slope. You said that side of it. I was gonna say, what's to stop people from being charged whenever their kid, like, criminally, whenever their kid commits a suicide? Like, a lot of these times in these, like, shooter situations, they lost a child too, so they're also a victim, right? To some extent. Now, like, so I don't know. I think civilly might be the way to go on this, but the idea that we're gonna start charging people for their kids 25 years after that, like this, like, you might not even talk to your kid in 20. Like, that's crazy. That's wild. It's real wild. That's
Yeah,
a
but
real.
I mean, as I previously mentioned, like,
Can we
take the
charge the children for their
case of
parents' crime
Syria.
too? Like, can we do the opposite? Like, if Papa goes and shoots like 12 people, can we charge like the child for the crimes? As long as we're getting somebody in the family, can
Well,
we do that?
that's
No, because I mean,
obviously bad faith
yeah,
country at this
that's
point.
no,
it
That's a
doesn't.
yeah,
bad.
that's
So
bad faith.
that's bad faith.
No, it's
but
not. I mean, it's
it
what's
is.
the
It is
difference?
bad faith. It is bad
I
faith
don't see
because
the difference.
because the kid is not in charge of the adult.
Well, what if the adult dies? We got to charge somebody in the family, right? Somebody needs to pay for this.
No.
The reason why you would charge an adult with the child for the child's action is because the adult is responsible for that child. They are responsible for raising the child. They're responsible for molding this person into the adult that they're going to become. This is what the role of a parent is. So maybe we didn't get to it last time, but maybe you could explain to me what you think the role of a parent is to be. And I'll just restate mine is I think that after they're like 12. I don't need to break down into the smaller steps. I don't think we were considered about 10-year-olds killing people. After the age of 12, your role is pretty much to allow them to practice having freedom. And when they get off track, you nudge them back into line. That's what I think. Maybe you can explain to me what you think the role of a parent is, because if it can go the other way around, you're living in a wacky universe. And just real quick at the end of this, I just want to say, Vigilante, I don't think that parents can, aside from like raping their kids, can possibly turn them into pedophiles. That was a really weird thing to say.
Well, let me ask a question. Let me ask.
Sexual abuse is a form of abuse.
Let me ask a question.
I said unless they do that.
Would you guys change your mind if the parents did not know that this child had the gun at all? Like the dad didn't purchase it or nothing?
I would be against the decision at that point.
Depending on other information, probably.
This particular case is especially egregious. So if the kid got the gun from a friend's house and they didn't know, no. But at the same time, not 10 years, but there were still obviously other forms of neglect in this case. Because this case was a mountain of evidence that the parents were just ignoring the kids.
Yeah, they're criminally negligent.
Purchasing the gun and letting them have free access to it is a nail in the coffin. I think it would be hard to look at this case without having that information and knowing how I would feel about it. But there is other things that maybe don't add up to you go to jail without that. But for sure with that.
I just don't like the rhetoric of parents should be I mean, the way it sounds like is that people are saying that parents should be held responsible for the actions that their 15 or 16-year-olds are doing at all times. And I think that's kind of crazy. I'm not saying everybody's saying that. It just sounds like that.
I would just I'm sorry. Let me see names really quick. So vigilante. What is that? What you're saying? Can you just clarify for everybody?
No. So it's a caveat that I was expecting people to not fully hear, but I did add the caveat when I was speaking of if there is actual evidence, witnesses, etc., of the parents being abusive.
Well, in this
or
case,
negligent.
that element is also
yes.
aiding the act, right? Like for me, aiding the act of him actually going and killing is like this cold nail in the coffin. You get rid of most of the other things. This is punishable on its own.
Here, let's
Sure, I got you.
let's take a look at the let's take a look at like a real life example outside of this. So how many of you guys know about the Gabby Petito case?
Never heard of it. Can you
I've
just
heard of it,
explain?
but yeah, catch us up.
Just
Gabby-
explain the generals.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the too long didn't read. Gabby Petito was killed, was missing because the guy had basically just hit her body and left. He went back to his parents' house. They eventually found her body, and he went into like a state park, and he decided to take the longest of naps, and his parents were being sued by her parents for basically causing harm by saying that they hope that they find their daughter, because at that point they had probably known that that she was dead. So if we take a look at that, right, should his parents be held responsible for what he did, considering that like he came back home, they went on vacation, etc., and so on, she was nowhere to be found?
Well, wouldn't
Based
that
on
be a
that,
crime
no,
if
it
it was
doesn't sound like-
it wasn't
I
your
mean-
kid too?
Like I gave you the too long didn't read. There's a lot of evidence behind what I'm saying, and there's a burn letter and everything. But what?
What is there any evidence of that the parents were physically abusive towards him at any point in his life? Or
I
like
think
any
it sounds
form
like
of
the
abuse?
parents didn't.
or
The
negligence.
parents
This
found
is
out
the problem-
information that they
the
had
problem I have with
killed it and did.
Right. I'm asking. I'm asking not like they abused the person. I'm asking that there was probable enough information to know what happened, and the parents decided to help him escape and help him.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
aiding
yeah,
and
then-
abetting.
yeah,
That's
they should
aiding and abetting a
absolutely
fugitive, so that's-
be
That's different.
abetting.
I don't think
fugitive.
being a parent makes any difference in this
That's
case.
accomplice after the fact. Like
Yeah.
that, the parents definitely should have been charged.
It makes it. I mean, you can somewhat understand it because a parent's going to always love their child, but they're still
Here's an
held
easy one.
accountable
Here's an
for
easy
that.
one. If a kid goes in I don't know, robs a store at
Thank you.
gunpoint at 16 years old, should the parents be responsible?
Were their parents
Uh,
negligent?
They don't know anything about this.
Then no.
I think there's
Okay,
a really
no,
easy
that-
Well,
metric
okay.
to go by. Did the parents
no.
do anything to help this happen? And could the
Whether-
parents have knowingly done anything to prevent it? I think these are the two most important questions that you have to ask. If they assisted in it somehow through negligence, like buying a gun and letting them have it whenever they want, and then they rob the store, probably. But or if the kid's like, I'm gonna go rob the store, and the parents didn't do anything about it, then sure. But like, you either have to have helped or been able to knowingly prevent it. Otherwise, like, it seemed pretty tough.
I want to push back a couple things that I just heard said through the last part. Like one, right? All right. So when we talk about that situation, like why y'all keep bringing this buying the gun? I know that the kid that had mental disabilities and was going crazy, that was probably not the kid that should have got a gun. But like a lot of states and like a lot of areas have a proud like I had a gun since I was like 12 or 13, and it never once crossed my mind. Hey, we're gonna go
Yeah,
shoot up
but-
the school. Like,
Okay,
I
so-
get it. Yeah, you get it to like because you were taught proper going under shit. Like, it's healthy. Like, I would argue that those are things that would even prevent maybe school shootings to some extent, as opposed to like, yeah, if some kid's clearly mentally ill, don't buy that kid a gun. Like, that. I get that. Like, I'm not gonna argue. I don't know the specifics of this case well enough to argue that. So if that's what happened, the kid's clearly off his rocker, and they gave him the gun. So be it. But I do want to press back against buying somebody a gun that a kid has access to at all times is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I don't want to. I want to push back.
A kid should not have access to all times to a weapon.
Absolutely.
Period.
If you're 12, if you're a 13-year-old and someone breaks into my house and they have proper gun training, I hope my 13-year-old has access to a gun they can blow away. Just
You
like
can-
that kid in Florida.
You can hope that. But if your kid has access to that gun and they go out and shoot somebody, you should be held more responsible for that because you were negligent as a parent.
As long as it was responsibly managed at all time, there was never any warning signs.
If they had access to that gun, that's not
hold
having.
on, this is the same issue I have with his standard for the like, hey, we're gonna go get him. Like, oh, maybe somebody did something abusive to this person, and then 25 years later they go and commit a murder, and we're gonna try the parents too because once Sally saw him, he got hit by Bob. That's wild.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't agree with that. But when it comes to
when it comes to
when it comes
right,
to
I wanted to say no. That's the slippery slope I'm concerned about right there now.
Sure. But when it comes to responsible gun ownership, that means that your kid cannot have access to a gun at all times.
Absolutely.
Because
as long as they're not taking it to school, sure, okay, yeah, I agree. Then not all times.
Why are you putting your kid in a position where they have to defend their life? That's your job. You're the dad. You protect your kid's life. You do not put them in a position where it's ever.
I think that's a little bit.
Hypothetically, he's not home.
That's bad faith.
Yeah,
so you're gonna leave your kid home alone and go, you know where the gun is.
There's literally a story like right now.
15-year-olds can stay home alone. What are you talking about?
I would even say like certain 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds probably can stay home alone.
Maybe I didn't want to go that far, but sure.
But sure, I'm sure like if they get home from school and the parents aren't gonna be home for another 30 minutes, like an hour, like that's probably reasonable to like expect them to be able to take care of themselves.
Sure.
And I would absolutely want my kid to have access to a firearm, especially when they're 12 or 13, and somebody could just break in.
You can have access to other instruments that don't cause death that will also defend them. Security systems, buckshot, beanbag shots, etc. That's fine.
Beanbag shots.
Sure.
Now you're gonna piss
I'm
off
saying
the guy?
Elder Drazi makes a very valid point here. Like, do you just leave and be like, "Hey, kid, you know where the gun is? We'll be back in an hour or two."
You have proper training on it. You take him out.
No, there's levels to this shit, right?
It's in the safe. Oh, someone breaks in. You know the code, right? We do a drill or something on it.
You prepare the kid. You prepare them for the worst possible scenario. You don't say like, "Hey, son, it's your job to be the fucking turret to defend the house today." But you say, listen, like we have a gun. Here's how it works. Here's how you use it. Let's go to the shooting range. Blah blah blah. And then if I'm not home and some shit goes down, here's what you do.
Because 99% of the time, it's never going to happen. But if it does,
but it might.
You need to do it.
And it might. And then God, if the kid knows how to use a gun.
In all fairness, I went to high school in the Thumb of Michigan. Most kids that I went to school with regularly used firearms. Now, I can understand some of these people. I understand that some parents might have a good understanding, a good relationship with their kid, where they have a healthy relationship with firearms, where I wouldn't think this is the craziest thing in the world. However, as a general rule, it sounds like the craziest thing in the world. This sounds like something that is can be acceptable on an individual level, but I would never say that this is like what we should broadly advocate, because the likelihood for this to be abused, just looking at how often firearms end up in kids' hands and having things happen badly, seems like a really irresponsible decision to make. But I think there would have to be pretty good justification. This would have to be a very familiar kid with the firearm kind of situation. It's just, I would hesitate to ever broadly prescribe this, because that's just
I wouldn't prescribe it either. And I think you're 100% right. The people who would do this would have they're going to self-select for the type of people who are in the type of culture who are going to be aware of firearms and understand the safety of those said firearms. Generally speaking, not all the time, of course.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing that we should arm all kids. I think the argument with guns always comes down to like that very, classical liberal view of like individual choice and freedom, and I actually think most Americans probably feel like, I'm sure someone has fucking some study that'll say that I'm wrong, but I think generally speaking, most people feel that if you're responsible with a gun, there's nothing wrong with you owning it. It's just, we all argue about, to what level responsibility, can be gauged, or how do you define responsibility. But just to kind of break this up a little bit, we're not really even arguing about the gun here. What we're arguing about is, to what extent are the parents responsible for A, cultivating an environment where this mental illness came to the surface, and B, not being aware of the mental illness coming to the surface. So the gun is a means through which the kid could, carried out a lot of, they killed fucking people, right? But, what we're scrutinizing the parents for, more than just simply the kid having access to a gun, which is part of it, but it's secondary to that other point, right? So the question is really like, to what extent can you hold parents responsible for their kids bugging the fuck out? And that's an important question, I think. And I think, I'm not like vigilante where I say like if somebody goes postal when they're like 30 that their parents should be held responsible, because there are various factors that go into that kind of behavior. But I think when you're so young, you're 15, 16 years old, most of the responsibility of what's happened to you lies in your parents, a vast majority of it. So, it comes down to that. And yeah, I don't know. And does anyone else agree with me that like, there's just an extent of this, there's just an aspect to this where it's like, they're just trying to make the victims' families feel kind of better. You know what I mean? Like, okay, there's an equal exchange here, which is
society in general.
Right. And I think that's criminal justice in general, like not to be like a douche, but like if anyone's read Nietzsche, like on the genealogy of morals, he kind of goes into that, right? Like our idea of right and wrong, and our idea of justice derives from, if you get to enjoy, partaking in sin, you have to pay a toll, essentially. And that's how we're looking at it. Like we want our pound of flesh, for this horrible crime. And I don't know, like, how do we resolve this from happening again? Is the question. It's more important than maybe this particular.
Well, that's why I think you touched on this right just now. This is why I said earlier I wouldn't be opposed to like them civilly cutting out, right, as opposed to like criminal. I don't know that you should be charging people for other people's crimes unless they're directly right. That is concerning to me. Now, I do think that they should take some responsibility. And I definitely think that people should get their pound of flesh, much like say Sandy Hook did from Alex Jones, right? I think this is like maybe a time where they get their pound of flesh extracted from them in money, right? Like, and I think that's a good way to do it, as opposed to like saying, "Oh, you commit this crime, like you're potentially tied to this family." Because I think and I know that I kind of went even further than vigilante with my like slippery slope when I was like, "Oh, then they're going to be coming the opposite way," because I think this is like one step. Like it's like if you don't gatekeep here, you're going to open up the floodgates to where all of a sudden now we've got the president said we can go after their family for other people's crimes. What's to stop them from the next step, like and the next step? And that's very concerning to me, as opposed to like a civil like solution where the parents get
Well,
whole, but restitution. I feel like that's more justice served than like going after.
Drazi makes a good point.
Hmm.
I think he's asked several times, what is the role of the parent? And so part of the role of the parent would be to identify and then rectify the issues when your kid is having a spazzing moment. Well, however we want to define a spazzing moment, whether dangerous to other people. That is absolutely a parent's responsibility at that point. Now, if they knowingly and in good, sound mind, legally speaking, do a crime, well, that's on them. They should be punished for that. But if they're doing this because they're having a mental breakdown, that is your responsibility as a parent, and you're 100% responsible. Well, I don't know about 100%, but you're
What if like
responsible
they
for your
hide
kid.
this from them, like they like say like the Columbine kids did, where they were hiding this and they were planning it for months,
But
and
they
then
were of
like
sound mind, though. They were not out of their legal mind.
Um,
Legal. That's I say
Yeah,
legal very
and
specifically for a reason. Now.
Go ahead, Drazi.
there's a problem.
They thought they were
I hate
God.
what not Smoker said. Not that he said it, but the idea that that might be the case. And Admiral Gibbs's issue goes away with it too. I don't think that the justice system should be retributive at all. Like it's crazy. Like if we're punishing the parents to make the other parents feel better, that's fucked up. Because one, it's saying that prison time can somehow do something to heal you for your kids. No, it can't. That's just going. This is a positive reinforcement of the worst of human emotions. We're worried about people being abusive and violent towards each other, saying like, yeah, I guess my kid's dead, but now that motherfucker is sitting in jail. That doesn't heal you. I don't care what anybody says. That's bad for you. It's bad. The idea that we're sending you to jail so that all the rest of us feel good or better about what you did is fucking insane. The reason why we should be sending people to jail is because we don't have a better system to rehabilitate people and make them better functioning members of society. The idea behind jail that we always say is to reform people. It's not what it does, it's what it should be. Even though it's not, it's the best we have right now. It sucks, but it should never be about the government serving revenge for you. That's fucking crazy. I would be dead set against any parents going to jail for their kids' actions if it's about serving revenge for the victims of the other people. That's crazy to me. And if
I
we
don't
don't
think
do
he
that,
was
then
advocating
then there's no
okay, so
slippery
I
slope.
agree with the revenge thing. I do want to know, like, so I think that non-smoker touched on this though. Is like there's got to be some kind of like justice, right? It's like maybe like used to is an eye for an eye, right? Maybe we've evolved it. And that's why I said civilly, I thought maybe is where they would get the restitution, right? And as for what you're saying though, yeah, I think there is some evidence that revenge maybe shouldn't be like we shouldn't have like, hey, you know, there's a guy named Vigilante. We shouldn't be taking up vigilantism and going and doing it ourselves. Like, oh, they killed my kid. We're gonna go string up the parents. Like, that's not what we should be doing, right? I agree, but there is some sort of like revenge aspect within justice. We're like, oh, you took from me, and now
I'm
society's
not saying
gonna
there
guarantee
isn't. I'm saying there
nothing's
shouldn't
taken
be.
from you. Well, I mean, I also don't know that I agree with jail being for. But that's a whole different thing. Yeah. So I mean, do you think that
It's
civilly these
supposed to
parents
be.
should be
It's the
taken
same.
like
It's the
the
same
child?
thing.
Would you
What
be
are
okay
they
with
going to
that?
get out of a civil thing?
It's the same
Like
exact
the money, a
problem
judge
that I
gonna get
addressed.
What
from
money?
being part of the community.
Most of
Yeah,
the
I mean,
time, these people don't have any money.
sure,
And
but
that
a
was going to
judge,
be my
but
point too.
okay, I have an answer for that. A judgment is placed over their head, and that affects all their financial dealings going forward, which could be argued to
So
be bad
that's a forever punishment rather than just
until
sending
the
them to
money's paid
prison for
off.
a few years.
No, it's paid off. I mean, yeah, I mean, they get at least the freedom to learn from the mistakes.
I would say it's
exact.
it's bad for the exact
That's
same reasons. We're
absolute
still
freedom,
hurting
though.
somebody else to make somebody else feel better. It's not making society better. You can't make somebody whole when a human life that they're close to is taken from them. You can't make them whole. That's for them to figure out how to do on their own. It's not the justice
But
system's
it's not
job to
closure.
play
Closure.
legal therapist.
Yeah, closure's a thing, I think, though, right? Would you agree with that? Like, people want a final result.
No,
that
there's
matters.
no such thing as closure, dude. When you get fucked up from something, you be fucked up from it forever. You're not going to get to say goodbye or do a thing that's just going to make you whole again. No fucking way. You got to figure that shit out
The
on
only
your own,
reason-
how you're going to deal with your trauma and grow from it. There's no closure. And
The only reason
the state can't
closure's
give it to you
brought
either.
up- The only reason closure's brought up at trials for parents and stuff like that is because they no longer have to consistently go through it anymore. They no longer have to consistently wonder about it.
I don't
every
think
day.
that's true. I
It's
think
not-
I think there is something psychological that retribution punishment does help people feel better about themselves. Now, whether or not that should be the case, that's a separate argument. But I think that the
for a
fact
very
that there's
short,
closure.
alleviated amount of time.
No, I think that there's conflict when it comes to psychological profiles and stuff. There's conflicting reports on this. I think that's something that should be explored.
I think if your
more,
girlfriend
and
cheats
that's
on
not
you,
really
getting
the
drunk
state
and beating
here.
up the guy who cheated on you makes you feel better too, but I don't think it's good for you.
But how do you? All right, who do we start holding responsible?
I
What
do
about if
condone
you're
this,
a
by the way.
single mother and you're working 3 jobs and you're never home and you're not just
Nice
working
job
3
pulling from chat.
jobs? I am gonna pull from chat. It's a good point. Listen, a dumb man is someone that doesn't take a smart idea from somebody else. This is a good point.
Yeah,
If you're a single mother and you're working 3 jobs and you're not home,
No.
by the economy,
That's
like
neglect
is it-
from the state.
But well,
'Cause the
so
state has
are we
been
gonna
forcing
charge
that to
her with
happen.
murder? Oh, the
No,
state.
that's not.
Oh.
That's not.
Did
No,
she
that's
buy
not-
the kid the
okay,
gun
what's
and
the
say,
standard?
"Here you go"?
What's the standard? What's the standard?
That's
Well,
not
maybe
criminal
she did.
neglect. You have to be
Maybe she
criminally
did buy the
negligent.
gun.
Not
Check her out.
criminal-
I mean,
No,
it could.
No,
Hold
I
on.
have the
Hold on.
I have the answer to this question. Criminal
It can
negligence.
be. Oh Jesus Christ. Okay.
Criminal negligence. That's your standard.
Go ahead,
It
Cypher.
can be considered criminal negligence in some instances because of the lack of attention that happens to bring. The fix for something like that is more comprehensive welfare systems so that a person that is a single parent, due to whatever circumstance it is, doesn't have to work the 3 jobs in order to raise their kid and make ends meet and not just and be still on subsistent wages.
If you're working 3 jobs, you can afford a babysitter. Hot take, I know. 3 jobs.
I
You got
doubt
babysitter money.
It depends.
Dude, have you ever paid for a
Depends.
babysitter, dog?
Yeah, it
I think
depends.
me and
$1,500
Kai
a
are the
month?
only parents. Yeah, sure. If you go to an agency or whatever, you can find a fucking babysitter. You can find a
Wait, what was you about to say?
16-year-old.
You and Kyle are the what?
Are the only parents here, as far as I know. You weren't here when I asked. Are you a parent?
Yeah, Osiris is like,
Have I
Seven
paid
kids
for?
and
Have
3
I,
grandkids. Come on. I mean, like
Yeah.
5 grandkids.
you pay? That's how much you paid for a babysitter.
That's how much a reputable licensed babysitter costs. Yes.
Nice dodge.
Sounds
Is that
fair
how
now,
much
yeah.
you've paid for a babysitter?
I don't pay. No, I don't pay for babysitters because I have 7 kids. So my older kids can raise my younger kids. Not raise. Sorry, that is stupid. They can help with the younger kids.
My kid
Don't
has
get it.
babysat other kids before. I'm saying if you want somebody that you can trust, a 16-year-old who hasn't had a job yet, you
A
talk to them, you
licensed
talk to the
professional.
parents, you can get a babysitter, okay? And you know what you can
A
pay them? You can
licensed
pay them
professional.
$15 for the night and say you can eat whatever's in the fridge. All right? You come home, the house doesn't smell like weed. I'm a good fucking babysitter. While you're at work. Now, that's not somebody you want to.
No,
got your
I
kids
was
for
talking
3
about
days
childcare.
straight.
I wasn't talking about a babysitter in that sense. But
I said
sure,
babysitter.
you can do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
fine.
Mom working 3 jobs does not need to leave her kids home alone to fend for themselves every night. You can get a babysitter. Now, hiring like a professional nanny, probably out of her budget, but you could. Better's
not
better.
A nanny, a daycare. A daycare. That's what I'm.
Sure.
But,
I just think better is clearly better here. Than
I don't know. I don't know who you're paying $15 just for a whole night. I don't know how you're getting away with that. I'm
some
pretty sure
16-year-old who
that's
just
gonna be
wants to
more
have some
hourly.
money for the weekend. That's who.
I don't know.
So
That 16-year-old's
happy.
going to cost that 16-year-old's going to charge about $20 to $25 an hour.
not only
Trust
that,
me.
do you trust this 16-year-old? Like, who is this 16? Like, that's a whole lot of other problems.
Like I said,
That's why
you talk to them and you talk to the parents. You should probably know who they are.
Do we
But I'm
still
saying
do
it's
that?
sure.
Does anybody
This
still
is
do
a thing. Don't act like I'm crazy. This is a fucking thing.
No,
Even if you haven't done it, you know that it's a thing.
I think you're wildly underestimating the cost of this.
Well, no,
This is
I've
why
done
you
it.
don't having more
Paid
kids. Everybody
per
should have 8
hour.
kids. by the way.
I babysat for just the fridge food because I'm fat.
Yeah, that's when
and,
you were a kid.
And
that
I have
was like
also
what, 10 years
done
ago?
this.
20 years ago?
It's Biden. It's his fault.
Let Drowsy finish what he was saying, though.
I'm saying this is a situation I am familiar with. There's a lot of 16-year-olds who aren't babysitting. Like, this is not like my career, but it's like, hey, if you can babysit my kids a couple nights a week, I'll give you a couple bucks. They just be happy to have any fucking money in their pocket at all. They're not
I
like,
don't know, man.
That sounds like an episode of a 90s TV show.
if they have competition or whatever, sure. But I'm not talking about hiring some professional babysitting
Yes, I'll do it
16-year-old.
for
This is
$2. I mean, I've babysat for free before, but that was for good friends, and they needed a date night, and I understood they needed that, so I babysat for free. That was more so out of the kindness of my heart. If you're paying someone to babysit, you're surely not paying $15 for an entire night.
Okay.
That's
It
a
certainly
wild
happens.
underestimation.
Real quick, non-smoker has to leave, so I'm going to go ahead and let him get a closing statement and give himself a shout out.
Twitch.tv/non_smoker. This is fun, guys. Didn't get to participate as much in the second topic, but anytime you guys want to talk education, feel free to hit me up on Discord, or any other topic for that matter. I'll see y'all later. Okay. All right.
see y'all, lady.
Always awesome having non-smoker, and I especially wanted him for that first topic, and I know sometimes he has to leave early, so that's why I put that topic first, because he is a teacher and definitely had some great input on that. So back to what we were talking about with babysitters. Please continue.
I just reject the notion that people say that this isn't something that can happen, because it can. Like, you could say like, well, you're underpaying whatever. Okay, sure, but like, I can't.
Wait, do you believe in food deserts and all that stuff?
Do I think this is something that every single person will always be able to do every time, if that's what you're asking? No. But I think that if you're able to find 3 jobs, you probably, you can probably afford to pay somebody to keep an eye on your kids.
I don't know, man. It's the gig economy.
No, the whole reason you have 3 jobs is because you can't afford anything. That's the whole point. What are you talking about?
If they had money to
Yeah,
afford that, then they'd be working 2 jobs.
Or one.
Or one.
The whole 3 jobs thing is a person stitching together part-time work.
Yeah,
over the
barely
course of-
rent, barely everything. Everything's barely at that point.
Well, I thought the 3
Yeah,
jobs
over the
implied that
course
they're
of
gone
60
always.
It's sleep
They
deprived.
are gone.
Yeah, they are gone
Yeah.
always.
But they're gone always, but they're stitching together 3 part-time jobs to make that work. They're not working 2 full or 3 full.
Well, if you're leaving your kids home
They're
alone by
having to
themselves, you're not
travel-
making it work.
Say again.
That's the only
If you're
way
leaving
they
your
can
kids home
afford it.
alone, you're not making
It's
it
either
work.
that or be homeless.
Damn, this guy hates the poor.
What are you
It's
talking
either
about right now,
that or
dog?
be
Like,
homeless.
what do you mean you're not making like that? Most of America is barely making it work.
What it, so
Motherfucker,
I thought
I'm
people
barely
say, I
making
hate-
it work,
wait,
okay?
Wait.
I
Would
got
it
a
be
kid.
better- Are
You find a
saying it would
way.
be- Are you saying it would be better to not have a house and work 1 job than
That
to
is
work
n-
3 jobs and have a house?
I think it's obviously not what I'm saying. I'm saying that when you're a parent, you find a way to make things work for your kids. This is what you do.
That's
this is
what
your
they're
job.
trying to do. They're paying for
And-
the fucking
okay,
house.
If you're saying this is what they're trying to do and their kids are home by themselves every night, you're not parenting,
Obviously, that's the point.
which means you are failing as a parent. And I'm saying that this is a problem. You need to get some assistance. You need to do whatever you have to do to make this work.
But the problem is the fact that we don't have assistance for these people. We have one of the shittiest social safety nets in the world, if not the shittiest social safety net in the world. So these people don't have the help that they need.
No, well,
and they can't get it.
That's not why we have that problem. We have this problem because people don't want to work 3 jobs and get a babysitter. Like that's the problem. You gotta do what you gotta do. Like
at some point, there's too many jobs, and fuck it. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm not doing 4 jobs, 3 jobs. Fuck that shit.
I mean,
no, having to work more than one job to make ends meet is having to work too many jobs. Like if you have to work more than one job to make ends meet, you have to work too much to make ends meet. Like nobody should have to to have a second job.
Bullshit.
Okay, so we need
I disagree because sometimes I disagree because if you can have 2 part-time jobs, right?
That's what I was gonna say. So
job that you're passionate about.
There's gonna be
a full-time and a part-time.
That's different. That's different. Okay.
Well, I mean that's
how many hours a week should a person have to? How many hours a week? This is what
40 to 50.
How many hours a week should a person have to work in order to make ends meet? Like what do we find to be acceptable?
32 to 40.
Like 60 to 80.
If you're working
40 hours, 60 to 80 is acceptable.
That's crazy, Gibbs.
I get paid very well. I don't work that much.
Okay, that's good and good for you. I'm happy. Now, if I was making less than I would have a second job of some kind. Like it's time. Like people want to bitch about all these things. Well, sorry that I want to work. I'm willing to work more, and I should have paid for your safety net. That's fucking pussy bullshit. You know what it is?
We get it. You're lonely, bro.
I mean, sure, I guess. Only at the top, I'm fucking winning. I mean, either way, that has nothing to do with
sleep by yourself at night.
Look, if you're comfortable with wasting your life away, spending it all working, that's on you.
Yeah, but I don't.
I think he said he doesn't.
Yeah, I paid. I don't have to. Yeah, I mean, I'm like, that's not the point.
40 to 50 is acceptable. We can all agree on that, right?
I mean, you need to work more.
I would say 40 to 50
you can work 90 hours a week if you want.
You should.
But if you have kids,
I'd say 40 to 50 is acceptable, but you shouldn't have to work more than 32 to 40.
No, I mean, we're looking at this hours a week thing wrong, right? If you can, this is what they do with salary, right? They pay you, right, a lot, and they don't ask you how many hours work because you might be able to get the work done in a short amount of time. And if
nobody gets salary anymore.
Well, some do.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you? Yeah, there's lots of salary jobs. What are you talking about? Everybody gets. Lots of people get salary.
You get all the work done.
And
everybody here is probably salary. What are you talking about?
Some of them, yeah, exactly.
I do DoorDash, so.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. Well, like I said, that's why they're paying you basically because they value your time. If you get it done faster, most salary jobs won't require you to stay at somewhere 9 to 5 unless that's a part of your contract, right? You can do, all the work, get it done, right? Or you might have to take longer. Sometimes you expect it to stay longer because, hey, you got to stay at the office. We have this meeting with overseas or something. All these are things, right? So they're paying you for your time, proportionally, right? Okay, maybe in that case, I see, okay, you only need one job, right? But there's a difference between, hey, I'm not there and I need to go work 2-3 jobs to make the ends meet and going, oh, I'm only working one job. And because my hours put in means that I deserve to get paid or have this social net. That's pussy bullshit. I'm not
literally everybody working a full-time job should be able to have kids, be able to have and afford kids.
Let me try to rephrase
That's what it boils down to.
I'm not trying to shit on this mom. But I remember when I was with my ex-wife and we were having a lot of really hard times and she was talking to her mother about I just don't know what to do about this. And her mom said, well, if I was you, I would find another way. And at the time that sounded really cold to us.
I'm sorry, find a what? You cut out.
Find another way. And at the time that sounded really cold, but we did. We just had to figure our shit out. Things can be really difficult for a lot of people, but when there's somebody else who depends on you, you have to find another way. It is not. So let me put it this way. If you're working 3 hours or 3 jobs and you can't take care of your kids as a parent, I hate to say it, somebody has to be taking the role as a parent for that kid. It's unfortunate. Maybe it's not your fault, but the kid still needs a parent. That doesn't mean that you automatically deserve to have them at your house just because you're struggling and your kids
and that's
need
why
a
that's
parent.
Considered neglect in some states, and that's where
I would consider that kind of neglect too. To be honest,
with you. It
that's
is.
all I'm really trying to say here.
It is, and that's where this all came from, because CPS will get called to your house if you live in certain neighborhoods, and you will have your kids taken from you because you're not taking care of them.
And I'll agree to a pretty broad extent that when this happens, it's probably a tragedy. It probably is somebody doing their best, but they haven't figured out a way to make it work. But the kids have to come first in that. How you feel about it? My number one rule for parenting is that my feelings don't matter with decisions I make for my kid. There's a time for me to feel my feelings about those decisions, but it's not when they're going to get made. What happens for the kid is what's correct for the kid, and then I deal with my feelings after the fact. That's how you have to. That's how we have to treat kids, so we don't fuck them up.
But so typically speaking, at least that's procedurally, what the government typically does is they prefer to the kid stay with the parent, even to the point, not to the point. That actually they do in most in
Texas. I don't think so, bro. There's a lot
CPS?
of people.
Are you talking about CPS?
Yes, they usually prefer that.
CPS does not prefer that the kids stay with the parent. If it meets a certain threshold, they take it away. Like, there's no
threshold.
Texas is going.
What's that threshold?
Texas is not going to give a parent the resources they need in order to take care of that child. They're going to tell their parent.
No, I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if they find it within their whatever their parameters may be, and that's the question. What are these parameters? That they're going to prefer that they stay with the parent. This is their guidelines. Is that they're going to prefer that they stay with their parent because that's the best for the kid. Even if it's better for the kid to go with it, say a foster system. That's my understanding. That's the way I've seen it happen.
You're right. The way this functions is that they'll come to the house. They'll like, look, you have to, with the exceptions of like extreme obvious abuse, they're going to come to the house and go, look, you have to change these things. We're going to check in again. They really do try to give you chances. They don't want to take the kids away from you in most situations. Like, obviously there's some bad people out there, whatever, but they're going to say, you got to correct this. Look, I think you're doing better, but you still have to correct this. They're going to keep on checking in. They generally do try to work with the parents to even come up with ideas, and some of them will even go above and beyond and try to help them. But for the most part, they try to. Now, Texas, I get it. Like that Texas is like
it's not just
fantasy
Texas,
America. It's like Wild West fantasy America.
Problem. This is a problem across the
United States.
This is a problem across the United States. It's not just Texas. New York has this issue. Boston has this issue. Several counties in the Midwest have this issue. California has this issue. There comes a point where a person can be doing everything that they can that is right, but they still will take away the kids from them because of lack of financial resources. And when it comes to southern states and Republican states in the Midwest, all that parent needed was another $1,000. Guess how much how much a foster care person gets? About $1,000 to take care of the kid. They would rather take the kid out of the parent's house and pay somebody else to raise them than give that parent $1,000.
Now,
that's the reality of the situation.
Should we have reform for how we help parents? Sure. But my whole bottom line is that the kid has to be taken care of. If you're in a state where that's shitty, it fucking sucks. And like I said, it's a tragedy, but somebody has to take care of that kid. That kid cannot be home alone every night by themselves, raising themselves.
Who's taking care of that kid? Who's paying for that?
Somebody's got to.
Yeah, who's paying for that?
Taking care of a kid is more than
because
money.
Society benefits.
That's ridiculous. That is.
I know. Libertarian land.
No, I'm not even a libertarian. It's a sad part. I'm just like seeing.
No, it's just all conservative land.
Sure, it doesn't take a village. It takes 4 jobs.
I know plenty of people that use these services. Some of them use the daycare centers provided for by the government. I've been with friends when they've gone. These things are a joke.
What?
They're money centers. They just like scam. Here in Texas, we have like government sponsored daycares.
Where? What county?
I mean, I saw one in
Bear County.
Bear County?
I used to live in San Antonio. What?
Okay.
I mean, I don't know about Bear County. I haven't seen it here. I haven't been with any people with kids that go to those here. But I know at least in Bastrop, Texas, they have one. In Corpus Christi, they have several. So I don't know. I mean, I would be surprised if Bear County didn't have them, considering this is a very left-leaning county.
Say Bastrop?
Bastrop.
Oh, I think you said Bastrop. Okay, I was.
Yeah, Bastrop.
Texas is in a real place.
it's like large city, like not large city, large town now. Like it's getting almost the small cities category. And so if they have them, and like Corpus has them, which is a major city, I'd be very surprised if left leaning.
This is actually a fairly new phenomenon because
But-
some cities actually got off their ass and wanted to save them.
But they're terrible. So when I go and look
Yeah,
at just like that example,
why are they terrible though?
well, because they're just like they'll think of any excuse just to collect the money and not have the kids there. Like actually, there, it's terrible. Like
Yeah,
they're
why is
they're
that?
all corrupt.
Lack of regulations.
No, because anything the government does is
And lack of
inefficient.
funding.
Lack of regulations, lack of funding.
Everything.
Don't you cannot talk to me about how these. Okay, this is a separate topic. I'm going to stop.
I don't know. I think the government. I think the government's pretty good at military operations. I don't think everything the government does is.
Thank God.
Wait, are we good at military operations? Is that what-
Yes,
God.
People
mostly-
who want to die usually die. Yeah, but I just
Cosby-
totally off the point. I'm just saying that the government can do good things if we
What
hold them
about-
accountable. There's been several
That's-
government
and that's
programs
the
I thought were
problem.
pretty good, even though I'm pretty. I think that the government fucks a lot of shit up,
Oh.
sure, but
Here's one.
sometimes it works.
So, Gibbs, I bet you approve of a voucher system for kids, for school. Like I would assume that that's the case. Yes.
Yeah, where they can go wherever they want.
Yeah. So, what role should the government have in ensuring that the kids actually go to a school that actually makes sense? That's an actual school that has some sort of bare minimum regulation with it. Bare minimum requirement.
Like, and when you say makes sense, what do you mean?
Well, whatever makes sense to you. What's the government's role other than just giving the kid, attaching the money to the kid's chest and sending him to a school? Do they have any other role in ensuring that the school meets some bare minimum requirements that ensure that the kid is actually learning something?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have standards for schools, don't we? I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to peel back this onion a little bit, right? So, in Ohio, they passed a school voucher program. And what do you think happened in Ohio when Republicans were in charge of that school voucher program?
I have no idea, but I'm sure you're about to tell me.
Yeah. So within the Ohio system, they did not have any sort of oversight of the school systems. Schools were literally closing down due to financial difficulty or being scams while kids were enrolled in school. And then their parents found out the next day because they didn't have nobody told them. The kids showed up. There was a sign on the building that said the school's closed and then money was gone. And then they had to enroll their kids into another school. How do you think that's good for the kid?
I mean, now, do I think that maybe they had some issues with how they rolled that out? Absolutely. But I know that you're not going to sit here and try to like harp on me about schools doing bad standards when I could like look at like, I don't know, Colorado
The
or
issue
California,
is
where they're starting to make grades where like not matter at all, where it's like get a
That's
20%,
not true.
that you get like a B. Like that's
not true.
Gibbs, I
It's
got you.
definitely-
You're blaming Republicans, but really, they're on the right side. This is in Ohio. Those kids are fucked no matter what, okay? They knew it was a waste of money and resources to school Ohio kids. I'm sorry, Sprout.
Ohio.
I just teasing
Sprouts not the
you.
one from Ohio here.
I just teasing you.
Vigilante's the one from Ohio.
Okay. I don't know you well enough to say I'm
Indiana
sorry.
actually did it somewhat okay.
Ohio's not a
But
real state, by the way.
Here's the thing. Here's the
Ohio's
thing.
the armpit of America.
This actually comes down to something that we've been talking
Michigan's
about
bicep that
off and on
collapsed.
in Osiris server. This actually comes down to something that we've been talking about off and on in Osiris server, and it's pretty much that, like we just talked about it yesterday. It's that school systems in general in America, Ohio is a great example of this, don't really have actual standards like we do for public school, but they don't have the standards for private school. We don't have the standards for charter schools in pretty much most states, and that's one of the biggest problems with education here in America.
Yeah, we did. We did talk about that. What was it, yesterday? There's like a standardization. What the problem with the standardization also is that then we're standardizing things, and then that means that we're putting kids in the bucket of that they need to perform at the same level that as somebody else does in another county or another district or another something else, and that's just not true. I think we just need to teach the kids and not teach the tests, right? Like that's
yeah. But when we talk about standardization, we're talking about having just basic criteria that the students need to learn. Not necessarily having that.
Oh, of course.
I agree.
There needs to be a bare minimum.
I agree. I agree with Despy that we need to get rid of standardized testing.
Yeah,
You know
there
what?
needs to be a bare minimum level of standard that all kids in the United States learn, regardless of what state that they're in, and it has to be
Yep.
high, and it needs to be high.
Yep.
States can
Yeah,
add
how
to
do you-
it, but they shouldn't take it away.
Yeah, how do you,
Especially as
It
we
needs
move
to be-
how do you
into
do that? How do you do that other than standardized testing of some form? Like
You
how
don't
would
you don't need you don't need the standardized, because the problem with the standardized testing regime is because of No Child Left Behind. They started attaching dollars to the how well the schools were doing. So schools were like, well, if my school's shit, I'm gonna just teach the test to make sure that the school keeps getting the funding that we're getting. It was done in a shitty way.
Or
Don't
they
do it in a
lie
shitty
and
way.
they pass kids that shouldn't be
They
passed because
pace
they need the
kids
funding
and
and
all that stuff. Yeah. So you need oversight, and we're just
Well-
not willing to oversee anything in the United States. The federal government's been cut to the bone when it comes to oversight of people. There's like 2 people that like look at all the fucking oil wells in Texas. The EPA doesn't have enough people to monitor all the fucking Superfund sites. It's just a massive problem with this, just gutting all oversight within the U.S.
Just to bring it
across the board.
back to the original
Hold on.
topic,
Go ahead,
I'd say that
Drowsy.
any kid who gets caught doing anything bad in Ohio, throw their parents in jail for having kids in Ohio.
Dope.
Well, funny part about that is isn't it like something around like half of the serial killers that we've had in America were born in Ohio?
Case in
It's
point.
because of all the lead.
Wow, we brought it back to my lead
Anyways.
gasoline argument too. Let's fucking go.
Yes.
This is a thing. So I think we've pretty much run the full course of this, and it's getting to be about that time that we go to the open. So I'm going to let everybody get a closing statement, and if they need to dip, go ahead and give themselves a shout out, starting with Cypher.
Hey everybody, this was a fun time. If you want to debate me on any topic, I'll pretty much take anything on. Again, I do a weekly, or try to do a weekly podcast called Cypher Report. Break down a lot of stuff. Go check out our TikTok episode. I was wrong about the government the Senate actually not passing it. Senate did pass that recently, but the wealth of information is still useful there. So I would totally check it out, because China is bad. Anyways, again, thanks, Lee, for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming through. Gibbs.
Hey, I'm Admiral Gibbs. Closing thoughts. I think I said everything I need to say. Kids need more whoopings. Maybe we shouldn't be charging people for crimes they don't commit, but maybe we look at it civilly is kind of my take on this one. Other than that, you can find me as Admiral Gibbs on everything. And I also agree, China and Russia are bad politically, so boo China, boo.
Thank you for that, Gibbs. Drazi, my man.
I'm Eldrazi. I'm on Twitter, Twitch, Kick, YouTube, everything. Just Eldrazi. You can find me. Yeah, obviously, if you just do the opposite of whatever Gibbs recommended throughout this, I think we're pretty good. I hope, like, I see you crack a smile sometimes. I hope that some of this shit's in jest at least. Otherwise, I think that's about it for me. But I do want to just say at the end here, Cypher, add me on Discord. I'd love to debate on something. I just can't get as many as I'd like to. I'm sure we can find something.
Sure. I'll add you a friend right now.
Awesome.
And thank you for having me. I
Cyrus.
appreciate it. And it's nice to see you again, Sprout. Been too long.
Always great having you on, Drazi. And then we got Osiris wearing the dad shirt appropriately.
Listen. I am the ultimate #1 dad of the year, as elected by me personally. You know what? Shout out to you, Lethea, for putting together the panel, and especially about a parent panel. There's a lot of things we should be talking about when it comes to parenting and responsibilities and what we should or should not do. And this is always a good topic to have.
Great. Thank you. Bro.
Yeah, so I am the Sprouticus. I'm just gonna double on what Elder said, and Elder, back at you. It's nice having a panel with you, especially one to where we're not on opposite sides. One where we can work together. It's nice. But I'm gonna hop on what he said. If whatever Gibbs says, take that as a good lesson as what not to do. And I think that we'll be doing just fine.
Gibbs bringing people together.
It's just I don't know. It seemed to be bad advice given from that square in the screen. But either way, yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/thespraticus, twitter.com/thespraticus, and Lethe, I'm probably gonna head out after this.
Hey, great having you, Sprout. Good seeing you. All that stuff. Vigilante.
Well, for the most part, just so everybody knows, for the most part, I was joking. Like I just wanted to see if I just threw out the most insane proposal on this, if the conversation would steer everybody closer together on positions, and Gibbs ended up becoming a lot more reasonable on the subject than I expected he would. So it worked. It was funny because everybody was just throwing shade at what I said, and it worked exactly how I was hoping it would. I think the reason it worked is we had everybody else pretty much arguing that, like, the criminal neglect argument and being the more reasonable argument, and that's what I actually support. So it was fun. It was fun, and I'm glad it worked.
Awesome.
Vigilante's
So
like, I
we
just
are-
threw some shit out there, see if it'd catch anything. It did.
So
I just want to go on record say this is the best square on here. I don't care what else y'all say. This square gives the best advice. It's the best square.
I don't know.
I'm sure that square believes that.
That's right.
So, like, to be clear, like all of those links that I had posted, like, during the first topic, like about how the link between serial killers and abuse, and info on like how abuse affects crime and stuff like that. Like I'd done all of that research just to strengthen that argument if anybody pressed me on it, because then I had all of that research to fall back on.
Listen, I don't care how much research tells me that if I do something and my kids are 17 years old, you're gonna charge me for what the fuck they do? Fuck off, don't care. You know what? I'll beat their ass and then they can go to jail too. How about that?
Yeah. Tell them.
I mean, in all honesty, if you are a parent that doesn't monitor your child well enough, and at 15 years old, you allow them to get a firearm, you take them to the range, the whole deal, and then that kid that you're not paying enough attention to goes off and smokes 4 other kids on GP.
Criminally negligent, not paying attention to. I'll agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, like
then maybe you should catch some time.
So, like, this is my issue,
like,
right?
see the problem. Oh, hold on, Gibbs. Because the problem with that is, like, we could talk about how, like, a lot of the parents of serial killers end up being criminally negligent as well, when they were a kid, because, like, there are a lot of, in, like, the case of, like, Ted Bundy and stuff, they were, like, killing animals and stuff. Like, that's an early sign that somebody's going more likely to become a serial killer. And, like, and a lot of the times the parents ignore it and stuff like that. They don't do anything about it, and, like, these people end up turning into serial killers. So, like, it's still, like,
I mean,
No, I don't give a fuck about none of that shit. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit.
That, like, so say, like, that's part of the reason why I brought up the gun thing earlier, and I really wanted to push back on it, right? Like, if you see your kid, like, going out and tormenting lizards, and, like, you're from, like, a hunting family,
Yeah.
you maybe go out there, you try to, like, take them hunting with you, and you try to explain them how life works, and whatever, and you go from there. You, like, kind of like but if you and then after that, if you see them doing more kill the lizards, torture kind of stuff, then maybe we don't take them hunting no more. But if they seem to, like, oh, this is death,
maybe
this
you
is
throw them into a
finality.
psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, yeah, or whatever. Then sure, okay. Now, if you're not in a hunting family, or whatever you find thing, but, like, I don't think people. I think, oh, you see Johnny, who's like 5, accidentally beat a lizard to death because he doesn't understand the concept of death, and, like, he's hurting this thing. That's one thing. If you see Johnny over here with it splayed out, like, on, like, a cross or something, and he's dissecting it while it's alive, now you might need to go see somebody about that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a whole different kind of little thing you got going on. And I think to act like there's not levels is kind of ridiculous. And I hate to turn into Fabian Liberty, but y'all got me turning into him. Like, what are we gonna define? Like, what's the line here? How do we define this? Like, what is, like, neglect? And that's kind of why I'm glad Chat brought that up, about the mom working 3 jobs. I don't see that as neglect. That she's doing the best
We
she
have a
can.
line. Gibbs,
Yeah,
we
like,
have a line. It's called criminal negligence. If your
yeah.
kid is fucking putting cats in the microwave, and you don't say nothing about that, you're fucking criminally negligent. You're a fucking retard.
Exactly.
I agree on that. I mean, sure.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know, and it's all like left-leaning nerd stuff. Mhm.
Thanks for coming through, my dude.
All right.
Have a
But
good